Hello guys, welcome back to the new videos of CodingPy. Today I am going to show you that how you can build machine learning web application that predict IPL score. This is project 6 out of 50 plus AI project. In this video I will show you that how you can apply random forest regressor as a machine learning algorithm on top of dataset. So before we start, please hit like and subscribe button. But first upload the data on Google Colab just like so and scroll it down and move on to the next step. And here as you can see, install all the dependencies which is required for this project, which include pandas, scikit-learn and Gradio. In my case it is already installed, so it says requirement already satisfied and some of the file still get downloading, so wait for a few seconds. And here as you can see, file get downloaded successfully. Now quickly move on to the next step, which is importing the important libraries. So here I used to install pandas as PD for data ingestion as well as manipulation, NumPy as NP for mathematical computation, Gradio as GR for creating user interface. From sklearn.model_selection I used to import train_test_split in order to split our data into test dataset and train dataset. From sklearn.ensemble I used to import random forest regressor as a machine learning algorithm. This is very powerful machine learning algorithm used for regression task. Finally, in order to evaluate our model, from sklearn.matrix I used to import mean squared error and R² score. Quickly run the code and move on to the next step, which is load and pre-process the data. And here as you can see, with the usage of pd.read_csv I used to read the IPL dataset and store it to the data variable. Next I used to define the feature and target variable. For this I used to separate out all the important feature and store it to the feature variable. Next I define target variable, which is total. It indicate total IPL score. Now in order to pre-process the data I used to remove the missing values from the dataset. For this, inside data.dropNA method I used to pass feature as well as target variable, and I used to store it to the data variable. Next I used to split the dataset into training dataset and testing dataset, which is correspond to the 80/20%. This is very important in any of the machine learning project in order to protect data from leakage. Training dataset is used to train our model and testing dataset is used for model evaluation purpose. Quickly pass the feature dataset and target dataset to the train_test_split function with test_size would be 20%. Now store it to the 4 different variable, which is x_train, x_test, y_train, y_test. And at last as you can see, x_train.shape with index 0 give the training samples and x_test.shape with index 0 give the testing samples. Now quickly move on to the next step. Here in this step I used to apply random forest regressor as a machine learning algorithm on top of training dataset. And if we talk about random forest regressor, what really it is? Random forest is a flexible machine learning algorithm used for both regression as well as classification tasks. It uses ensemble approach, which can build multiple number of decision tree and averages their prediction. And here as you can see, inside the random forest regressor class used to define n_estimator, which is 100. This is nothing but a number of decision tree with maximum depth equal to 20 and minimum sample split equal to 3. Here I also mentioned that random_state, which is equal to 42. It might be any value. And finally I used to fit the model on top of trained dataset. Quickly run the code and as I see, model fitted perfectly on top of dataset. Now quickly move on to the next step. I need to evaluate the model performance. Now I used to pass x_test data to the rf_model.predict function and store it y_pred variable. Next I used to calculate the performance of the matrix. For this I used to define a variable called MSE I call mean squared error function, and inside that I used to pass y_test and y_pred. Similarly for R² score, used to define a variable called R2 where I call R² score function. Inside that I also pass y_test, y_pred variable. Finally taking print of these two variable MSE and R2. Now quickly I used to run the code. Finally I got the result. MSE equal to 356 and R² score is equal to 0.57. Clearly says that model is underfitted. Requires hyperparameter tuning. In my upcoming videos I will show you that how you can apply hyperparameter tuning on top of dataset. but as of now it is good, so I used to go with it. Quickly move on to the next step. Finally, as you can see here, that I used to define a function for taking input from the Gradio. For this I used to define a function called predict_total. I pass 5 parameters which include over, run, wickets, run in last 5 overs, wicket in last 5 overs. Now with the usage of numpy, I used to convert this input into a numpy array. Then I used to store it in input_data variable. Next, inside the rf_model.predict function, I used to pass input_data with index 0 and store it to the prediction variable. And at last, in return statement, I used to take print of these prediction variable. Now quickly move on to the last step. For creating stylish and attractive Gradio user interface, I used to define a variable called iFace. With the usage of Gradio, I used to call interface class. Inside that, I used to define a variable called fn. Here I call predict_total function. I used to define a variable called input. Based on input, I used to create a slider. Now at last, I also define a variable called output, which store output text. As usual, I used to define title and description and make sure that live is equal to false. With the usage of iFace.launch function, I used to deploy code on Gradio. So as soon as I run the code, I will get the public URL. When I used to click on it, I will redirect to the public UI. Here you can see the public user interface. Quickly scroll it down and click on submit button. As soon as you click on the submit button, you will get the predicted result. This is how you can build machine learning web application that predict IPL score. I hope this video is informative. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Stay tuned for more update, and guys, trust me, slowly and gradually we gonna move on to the major projects.